Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Two Dimes and a Token. In this particular episode, we are super stoked to bring you. We had a great adventure. The team was able to travel to Nashville, Tennessee to interview an amazing human being. His name is Jack McPherson. He is in charge of social media, does video editing and production for a podcast called Bussin with the Boys. We had the pleasure of meeting them at one of their spring tour shows, and we were able to connect. And Jack was such an awesome guest, man. He came on, was really an open book, super fun to talk to, such an energetic guy. He had just this really creative vibe about him. So it was an awesome experience for us as a podcast to be able to sit down with him and talk. He has such a cool story coming up. He had some wild stories to tell. He had some pretty amazing stories to tell throughout his experiences as he's gambling in Vegas with Dana White, or he's backstage with Jelly Roll, giving big old bear hugs. And he has some awesome sports stories from when he was at University of Tennessee. Has kind of a scary story shared with us on that one, which was pretty dope. But what an amazing character, man. What an amazing guy. And we truly had, it was just an awesome time being able to sit with him, and such a cool experience. So I know you guys are going to absolutely love the podcast. Zero dull moments, amazing content. So just sit back, listen up. Jack McPherson. And I'm pretty sure I think we're good on everything else. So yeah, without further ado, man, we present Jack McPherson from Bussin with the Boys. I feel real successful right now. I've never felt more successful than with a pink drink. It's not bad though. Yeah, man. This is phenomenal. So, Jack, thank you so much for coming.
Of course. Yeah, it's an honor. So, thanks for having me.
Yes, dude. So, besides the 5-hour flight all the way over here, which was fucking phenomenal, what is our drink of the pod, brother?
Yeah, so the drink of the pod is good old iced coffee. You got to start your morning right with it. I know some people aren't caffeine people. I'm not one of them. I need my caffeine. Whether it's from Starbucks or your local coffee shop, doesn't matter. As long as it's iced coffee, I'm drinking it.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. I was saying earlier, dude, I was so glad you didn't pick alcohol.
Yeah, I could have really switched it up and chose some tequila at 11 a.m. But
yeah, that would have been absolutely phenomenal. So when they came back with this pink thing, I knew my life was going to change for the better.
Yeah, the pink drink. That is, it's an iconic one
right?
At Starbucks.
So, again, dude, thank you so much for coming on. We really want to get your story. So dive in, man. Where did you grow up? You from Tennessee originally, right?
I'm from here. Where you guys are, this Airbnb is actually my neighborhood, East Nashville. This is where I've lived for the last 4 or 5 years. Place I like to call home in my adult life. But I grew up in Brentwood, which is about 20 minutes south of here. Yeah. It's, if you know anything about Brentwood, it's kind of a little snobby. It has that tendency, but to all my Brentwood people out there, I love Brentwood to death. There's good people everywhere, and there's also bad people everywhere. But I grew up in Brentwood. It's a great city. I've got family, 2 loving parents, and 3 siblings. So an older sister, 2 younger brothers. Grew up here, went to high school, and then pivoted to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Go Vols. You got to shout out Knoxville whenever you can. It's a great city as well.
Listen, go Tar Heels, brother.
Okay, look, hey, I grew up in that Tyler Hainsborough era, Roy Williams. So, look, I've got a little bit of Tar Heel blood in me, but for the most part, now I'm Rick Barnes and the Vols.
That's fantastic. So, dude, you mentioned your younger brothers, dude. I saw in some of the content you guys have been pushing out. You've met your younger brothers at some of the events. What do they do?
So, my younger brother, James, who's closest in age to me, he's 26. He actually lives in Hawaii. So he is out there on island time, probably just getting up right now, about to go out and run the what is it called? The parasailing. Like he's a captain on a parasailing boat.
Really?
Yeah. So he's living the life out there, just, disconnected from reality, doing his thing. Super proud of him. He was a fucking stud basketball player in high school. If you knew him then, you know his story. He's got a wild one. But then I have my younger brother, youngest, Joey. He is 22 years old, also just graduated from Tennessee. Kid's an absolute fucking stud. He's like more mature than I am, and I'm 6 years older than him. But he lives here in Nashville, just locked down a job with Geodis, who is they own or not own it, but they're the soccer park, the sponsor. So it's Geodis Park. Okay. So he does supply chain logistics, and we talked about this a little bit on the pod, but I got to shout him out again. My brother Joey just set the all-time record at Tennessee for most intramural wins of all time.
Dude, that's insane.
So insane, man. The kid is just an absolute grinder. He's got his priorities really in straight. I'm really proud of him. He's a good kid. Really smart kid, way smarter than me. Will probably be the most successful in our family. And he's the youngest. And if you talk to him, you might get 5 words out of him. He chooses to listen over speak, and that's probably something I could take a page out of his book for.
I think we all could do that. So, you said obviously your brothers played sports. Did you play sports?
I did. I think I've played nearly every sport. I'm more of a jack of all trades, master of none. But again, my main sports in high school were lacrosse. Which I know, long hair, white guy from Brentwood, I'm like fitting the bill perfectly.
Yes.
But I played
401k plan and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But I've played every sport pretty much competitively, from soccer, baseball, football, basketball. My junior year in high school, I kind of started getting bored. So halfway through the hockey season, my friends on the team, their dad was the assistant coach. His name is Stu Grimson. If you're not familiar with Stu Grimson, they called him the Grim Reaper. He was a legendary NHL player with so many records for penalty minutes. And then he moved to Brentwood, settled down, had a family, and he was the JV coach. I ended up never playing competitive hockey in my life. Walked on to the team halfway through the season. Really? And just started playing, because that's just kind of like how I perceive sports. I've never, whether it's attention span or commitment or dedication, I've never just like fully drove in. Lacrosse, I was pretty competitive in, played travel. We went to a state championship, had 2 goals. It's not a big deal. We did lose, but I like to really kind of have my feet in a bunch of different baskets. But sports have always been like a cornerstone for my life. Just something, whether it's just playing football or pick up basketball with the boys or going bowling. My senior year, to get out of fall workouts, if you played, because lacrosse is a spring sport, if you played a fall sport, you didn't have to work out in the fall. So I joined the bowling team my senior year.
Attaboy.
And again, we went to state. I did bowl. We did lose again. Look, you cannot count the victories. You got to count the losses, because that's like truly where you're made as a man.
So you had that old Tony Dungy rep before he won finally in Indy.
Exactly. He might have taken a page out of my book, but who knows?
That's awesome, man. So when you got to UT, did you play any sports there? Or
just intramurals though.
Yeah.
Did win a championship there, and it was coming sooner or later. Shout out to that summer league flag football team. Played flag football, softball, basketball, volleyball, just so you know, run of the mill, all kinds of stuff. Again, I like playing sports in a semi-competitive environment where I think I'm going to be better. So then I'm going to be more competitive and probably ruin it for everyone, because I'm walking home like fucking mad. Don't talk to me. But that's what I love about sports. It's like it's a little bit of a release, a little bit of a way to step away from reality for a second, just have some fun.
Dude, absolutely. So side note, your boy played flag football after his 30s. No big deal. 10 touchdowns in a season.
There we go.
Tore my groin. No big deal.
Oh, no.
For a big boy, your boy can move. All right?
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. A little bit of athleticism in these legs, bro.
I respect that.
So, while you're at UT, bro, what is the wildest experience that you had there? that you can at least remember. We interrupt this podcast to bring you Sunterra Solar Solutions, a leading-edge solar company committed to making sure they provide a phenomenal experience to its customers. Going solar was one of the best decisions that I ever made. Not only did they provide me a no-hassle experience, it didn't feel like a sales experience. It felt like an amazing person-to-person having a conversation on whether solar was going to be right for me. I was fortunate enough to not only lower my monthly energy cost, but they gave me an option to be able to create a stabilized monthly bill that I could prepare around. I qualified for a new customer incentive that put cash in my hand after installation, as well as I qualified for a tax credit at the end of that same year after I had it installed. All in all, not only was it the best decision I ever made, I lowered my monthly energy costs, I stabilized my bill, I put a ton of cash in hand. It felt like I got paid to go solar. And my most favorite part that I haven't even mentioned, it eliminated my exposure to future increasing rates from the utility companies. So if you think going solar is the right thing for you, by all means, hit us up in our DMs. We can connect you with a sales associate today. And now back to the episode.
Man, there were a lot. And if there are any of my UT colleagues, grads listening, you know, we had some good times. Almost too many to even remember, but this one is a little bit different. It's not like a big party story, but it's carries some weight. So I'd been sick, to set up context. I've been sick for about 5 or 6 days. Didn't know if it was the flu or whatever. At the time, I was living in a fraternity house. So you're not going to the doctor. You're just like, you know what, I'm just going to stop drinking for a few days, get some sleep, get some fluids, maybe some chicken noodle soup, who knows. So about 4 or 5 days afterwards, I can feel myself getting a little better. The girl I was dating at the time, we have a place called The Hill. It's a bar. And on Wednesdays, they do Wing Wednesday. So you go and it's like cheap wings and cheap beer. Yeah. So like, yeah, I'm going to go out, just get some food, whatever. I end up smoking a little weed, going over there, and I'm waiting in line to get my beer. And like my girlfriend at the time and her friends had just sat down, and I sit down before I can even have like a second to think. I'm like, wow, I feel really lightheaded. I'm also, I'm type 1 diabetic. So, and I've been that since I was 18. So I'm like, I'm familiar with like what a low blood sugar feels like and what your body starts kind of like telling you. And I was feeling those signs. So I was like, I'm going to walk outside and get a little bit of fresh air. Yeah. So I walked out, and before I know it, I'm just waking up on the ground. Holy shit. And so whoa. I walk out, and it's like, it's a just like a pavement sidewalk. And apparently I walked out and just passed out, and just from top to bottom smashed my face on the ground. And shit, dude. You got a weak stomach?
No, not at all.
So every time I show people this, you're like, that's not you, but
get the fuck out of here.
I can send you this if you want to attempt to put it online. It's you might. I don't even know.
Might have to blur that out, bro.
Yeah, if you can have that.
Dude, that's wicked.
So yeah, I mean, you can't really see it anymore, but I had I had 36 stitches, like 5 staples.
Holy shit.
And so on the way to the hospital, like you know, I wake up to the group I'm with, and they're like, you know, like freaking out, and I'm in total shock. We get in the car, and like I said, when you're in shock, like your pain receptors aren't firing off. All you're doing is trying to like grasp the reality of the situation. So I'm in the front seat, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm literally touching my head, and I'm going, holy shit, I can feel my skull. And my girlfriend at the time, she's in the front seat. She pulls over, and she's like about to fucking pass out. So one of her friends jumps in the front seat. And the way Knoxville hospitals are set up, the children's hospital is on campus, and then the actual one is like 10 minutes away. Yeah. So this was kind of like time was against us. We went straight to the children's hospital, and I'm like 20 or 21 at the time, probably 20, I think. So we walk into the hospital. It's like Wednesday night at like 9 p.m. It's packed. It's a zoo. Walk in, and they're like, take a seat. And I've got all these paper towels on me, and they're talking for me. And I end up just taking them off and like looking at the lady, just like, and she goes, oh yeah. They're like, get this guy a wheelchair, get him back. I end up being in the hospital for 6 days. I was concussed for like, no exaggeration, 6 weeks. I had full black eyes. They thought I had what they call bacterial meningitis, which is when you get a crack in your skull and air seeps in and there's bacteria on it. And I'll never forget it. I'm by myself at the hospital because I remember my ex at the time, she had like the biggest final of her life the next day. So we'd been at the hospital for 5 hours. My dad's driving from Nashville to Knoxville to meet me. I tell her, I'm like, go home, like I'll be fine. It's like 3 a.m. Doctor walks in and he tells me I could have that. And he goes, and it's a 1 in 5 fatality rate, and just walks out.
What the fuck?
And I'm just like bawling, crying. And I call my dad. I'm like, he said, I got a fucking 20% chance I'm going to die. It was crazy. And then I remember, shout out to one of my brothers, Tyler Bozeman. He was my roommate at the time. Still one of my really great friends. I walk in and we were, like I said, roommates at the fraternity house, and he was a wild child in college. Again, been in the hospital 5 days, brain injury almost, stitched up, concussed, like can't even remember like my name. And I walk in and it's like a bunk bed situation, small room. His dad had painted us this custom UT table. Walk in, table's completely snapped on its end, and there's just throw up all over like everything. So you can imagine just walking in a room when it's throw up smell. You get nauseous immediately. When you're concussed and have like a brain injury, I'm like about to cry again. I'm like, dude, Tyler, like you knew I've been in the hospital for a week and this is what I show up to. Wow. And he jumps into like action. He's like getting everything out. He's like, dude, I didn't know you were coming home today. It's a funny story now. At the time, not that funny, Tyler.
That's fucking intense, dude.
But yeah, man, I don't remember like a good probably 3 or 4 weeks of college because I was just, it was tough. So not like like we got plenty of like partying and stories, but those, they're the same. This one's a little,
that one's very unique. It's
a little wild. Yeah. I'm pretty accustomed to injuries. I've broken a lot of bones and been in the hospital more times than I care to remember, but it keeps me coming back, I guess.
The dude's a warrior, bro. It's battle tested. God, dude. So, what year did you graduate UT?
2017.
2017. When did you first get hooked up with Bussin?
That is a crazy story in itself, honestly. I don't know if I remember you mentioning there's like a bad decision that could have led to a good decision. I don't know if you want to jump into that because there's.
Dude, if you're ready, so we have what bad decision to make the best stories.
Yeah.
So what is this for you?
So, and cut me off whenever you see fit. I tend to ramble. I love to throw in details and really try and bring you into this story. But this one is a bit of a long one, but I'm gonna try and sum it up as best I can.
Let's do it.
But we'll bring it back to around 2019. At the time, I was working with Garrett Hargis. Shout out Garrett. He's on the Bussin team. Yep. He runs our live events and merch. He makes all the stuff. He's one of my best friends. We've grown up together forever.
Awesome.
So at that time, we were both working for a magician, and he was like a Christian magician, and we traveled around the country, and we would sell out these mega churches, and we would be going and doing content. Yeah. We kind of had a falling out with them, and I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I need to start finding work. I was just kind of freelancing. And then it's the summertime of 2019. I go to Bonnaroo because me and my friends were growing up here. We always go to Bonnaroo. It's just a fun experience. And I come back, and to say the least, my dopamine levels are low. It'd been a long 4 days. We've been having all the fun in the world. Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I need to go be around something that's gonna bring me light, bring me love. So I go, I'm gonna go to a shelter, hang out with some puppies. So I go solo and I roll up to a dog shelter, and there's about 16 dogs in there, and 15 of them are all in one crate, and there's one by itself. The lady's like, hey, all the 15, they have kennel cough. You can't play with them, but she's like, there's this one right here you can play with. Yeah. So I sit down with the dog. She lays in my lap. All these dogs were going nuts too, and this one is by itself, just chilling. Yeah. 30 minutes later, it's just in my lap, hasn't moved. And I'm like, again, near tears. I can get a little emotional, but again, after Bonnaroo, everything's out of whack. I look back at the lady who's running the shelter, and she goes, you want me to get the paperwork? So I'm like, yeah. So I end up adopting this dog. Fast forward down the road, I'm living in a different house than I do now, still here in East Nashville. And my landlords at the beginning when we were going to rent were like, you can get dogs. The people who lived there before had 3 dogs, and we were like, we'll probably get one at some point.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask them to get the dog, but we'd already on a verbal agreement said it would happen. So I bring the dog back, and then long story short, like a month later, I'm in this huge legal battle with them, and they're trying to like either have me give the dog back, and I'm like, I'm going to die before I give this dog back, and I promise you that.
Yeah.
So I'm in Hawaii then with my brother like a month later because I'd already had this trip scheduled like 3 months prior. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, I just got a dog and I'm going to Hawaii. Luckily, my parents, Kathy and Steve, are the best, and they end up taking my dog for 2 weeks. And I'm in Hawaii for 2 weeks with the same guy, Tyler, from the previous story.
Yeah.
And we're visiting my brother. If you've ever been to Maui in Hawaii, there's this place called Hana, and it's the Hana Jungle, which is the entire backside of the island, which is literally just jungle. And you can drive it. It's about 6 hours, and there's always cool stops along the way. And there's this one place called Infinity Falls. You hike about an hour down, and it's a sea cliff looking over what is literally looks like the end of the world. And it's just, you're 200 feet off the ground. It's everywhere. And we're having the best time ever. I've been doing a little mushrooms too. So we're truly in tune with nature.
I fucking love this, bro.
And again, we're in the jungle, so I should have zero service, but I'm playing music. If you know me, my friend group, I like to play the tunes. Yeah. And we hit this random patch of service, and of course I look at my phone and I get this 4-paragraph text from my landlord, and they're like, you have been evicted. You have 28 days to like remove yourself. And again, you know, for the current situation, I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So anyways, we'll skip past this. We get over that, and so I get evicted.
Yeah.
And I end up moving back in with my parents at like 24 years old. And I'm devastated.
I was going to say, what's going through your mind right there?
All my friends are living here in East Nashville. It's not like it's a far drive, but when I'm hanging out with them on a Saturday night, I'm either sleeping on someone's couch and waking up regretful going to my parents like a shameful 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Or I'm going back home and like waking my parents up at 3 a.m. So it's just a bad situation. I end up getting another gig to go up to New York to move what it was a record store from Nashville to New York. And it was the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corp. My buddy Garrett, his stepdad, who just retired, congratulations, Butch. He's the man. He's been running Nashville basically for the last 2-3 decades. Wow. He's one of the guys who's made it what it is. So he hired me to drive a box truck with Garrett from Nashville to New York with, 3,000 records. And they were doing a whole PR push for Nashville, set up right in the fucking center of Soho. So I go up there solely to move it, just a week's worth getting paid. And I'm on my flight home on the tarmac, and Garrett's mom texts me, and she's like, are you on your flight? She's like, can I call you? My mind immediately reverts to like something bad has happened.
Yeah.
And then Butch calls me, the CEO at the time, and he's like, hey, can you stay in New York? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, can you stay for the next 8 months? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but I'm like, I need to go home and like do some laundry first. So I fly home, and then within 48 hours, I'm back. I'm in New York for the next 8 months, working this record store. Basically, is just like a liaison to Nashville. People come in, every record in the store is somehow attached to Nashville, whether it was written, recorded, or the artist, grew up here. Yeah. So it was like a cool way to like integrate Nashville culture into New York, where maybe some people hadn't heard of it. So I ended up going through one of the best experiences of my life there, leave New York, and 3 weeks after I get back, the pandemic happens. And I go from being in New York, feeling like I'm living the high life, living a life that I never dreamed of, to now I'm back with my parents again in Nashville. And then like 2 weeks afterwards, I get a DM from my brother, the youngest one in Bussin. Now we're getting back to where the original question.
Yeah, there we go.
He said, hey, Bussin with the Boys is hiring interns. So I'm like, fuck it. I have like a decent resume. I did media all through high school and had been, freelancing for a few years. So I ended up applying, and whether it was luck or sheer chance or destiny, as they call it, I got the job. And I ended up working for Bussin for about 7 months unpaid, not a cent to my name. Still living with my parents, but luckily at the time, I'm literally unemployed and it's the pandemic. For the first time, I was drawing unemployment, actually making really good money. So for the first time, I'm like, you know what? Maybe the government isn't wrong.
Maybe it's not terrible.
So yeah, it was a good little transitionary, and then I started getting paid like not very much at all, for like either like a month or like a week salary type thing. And for about 3 months, I'm getting paid, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm finally getting paid to do something I love.
Yeah.
And then I remember me and Garrett, who I mentioned, we get a phone call from Will one day, and we're roommates and we work together. And so we're literally on a speakerphone call with him, and we had just let someone go at the time. And he's like, look, like, this isn't like, we're not letting y'all go, but like, it's a business right now. And we like, don't know if like our brand can like retain this many people. And so then me and Garrett are just like, fuck, like, we just started getting paid. And I remember I went and had a meeting with Will, and we were at like 8th and Roast or something, over in Charlotte. And I'm like, dude, I love what I'm doing. Like, I feel like I have purpose. I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was like, whatever it takes, like, I want to be on. So I told him, I go, dock my pay. I go, I'll show up for $100 whatever day I show up, that's $100. And he was like, dude, I don't want to do that to you. And I was like, I don't, like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing that, and then I ended up picking up a few other jobs. Worked for Booth Camp Gym here in Nashville, an awesome gym that I still go to, and was working for a company called Defiance Fuel, water company. And then still doing the Bussin thing. And then about 2 years later, I end up getting brought on full time, health insurance, director of social, as my official title calls.
That's fucking awesome.
And then now job security feels better than ever. Yeah. Hopefully Will or Taylor doesn't see this and they're like, you know, you're like, yeah, you fucking wish.
You fucking wish.
But it's yeah. Sorry, that was a long story. I feel like there's a lot of context.
What was your initial role?
My initial role just as intern, really.
Yeah.
So we have like an interesting operation. Everybody is so like fluent in everyone's job. So like you can kind of mix and match. And at the time I was doing mainly content creation. So, you know, the trailers for podcast episodes and random clips and memes, and then they would give me more responsibilities. Like they started giving me the handle of the Twitter, and I was, you know, doing that and just making whatever I can to make sure I feel useful. Because ultimately everyone is replaceable. It doesn't matter who the fuck you are, unless you're The Rock or, you know, someone like
Joe Rogan.
There's someone out there that is ready to work as hard as you, if not harder, and probably better than you. But you just have to show value where you can. And I think telling Will too that I would show up for like $100 a day in a sense kind of like showed my loyalty to the brand.
Absolutely.
And I'm not like, you know, like, oh, like Viva La Stool. Like I love Barstool to death.
Yeah.
But like I don't want to come across as like a fucking 20-year-old frat kid.
Yeah.
But I love that brand so much, and Bussin especially, because Will and Taylor have been nothing but the best bosses to me, and taught me a lot, and we've had so many fun times. And as the years keep going, you keep thinking like, oh, we've hit like such a big trajectory this year. There's probably no way we're gonna go up, and it just like each year it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. So
that's wild, man.
Yeah, I think the negative decision though on that was thinking at the time was getting a dog, because I had run the tires a little dry at Bonnaroo, and thinking I made a mistake.
I want to feel better now.
And if it wasn't for getting that dog, I would have never gone to New York, and then I would have probably been in a different job by the time I got back from New York, not needing Bussin'.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, and then to the cherry on top, my dog Bonnie is the love of my absolute life. She's the great. Everyone says they have the best dog. I just happen to know I do. She's like a grandmother in a dog's body. She's so fucking easy to take care of and the sweetest thing. So I'll credit Bonnie for me getting the job.
That's dope. That's absolutely fantastic. So, dude, amazing story. One of the things I caught in that, it seems like you are extremely in tune with like your like your mentals, and it's like the mental health part. It kind of hit me a little bit because one of the things that really surprised me of what you just said, because I come from a different background. I come from kind of like that blue collar, like shut the fuck up, man the fuck up, all
Sure.
that bullshit. But when you sit there and you're like, yo, I need to reinvigorate myself. I'm going to a dog shelter. Like I want to feel good. That literally like what? You know what I mean? So tell like what is that for you? Are you that what kind of person are you in that realm?
Um, like it's a good question. I do like to stay in touch with like my mental self. I definitely go through the motions though. I feel like I experience emotions on like the highest scales, so the lowest of lows and highest of highs. I even wrote my college thesis in like layman's terms on why you can't appreciate the worst day of your life, I mean the best day of your life without the worst day of your life. And it's like a hard perspective thing for a lot of people to grasp. And I'm not saying I've grasped it or even mastered it by any means. Cause it's like mental health it's like this quote from Rick and Morty that I love where Rick is in this therapy office and he fucking hates therapy. And the therapist hits him with some knowledge and she's like, I don't want to fucking wipe my ass or brush my teeth cause it's boring, but it's work and we got to work every day. And that's like your mental health. Like it's not fun and it's not exciting and engaging, but like if you let shit pile up in the closet, like soon, like that door is gonna fucking bust open. And again, I'm no master to mental health or like emotional development and like really being in tune with it, but I do feel like I have perspective on life, and it mainly comes from probably being type 1 diabetic. It's not the worst thing that can happen in your life at all, but I got it a late stage in life where I was 18, which they consider it like an anomaly because it's type 1 juvenile onset diabetes. So you're supposed to get it anywhere from the age of like 2 to 12 is like normal. So like getting it when you're 18 is kind of not normal. So I remember getting it 5 months before I went to college, and I was like, oh, like my life has changed forever. And I went
Yeah.
through a lot of different like, ups and downs, and like, okay, I'm like, we're good. And then I'm like, no, this is not good. Like, why me? And that why me mentality will keep you fucking strangled forever. And we all felt it. It's like,
Yes.
why me? And again, I've had an incredible upbringing. I'm like so grateful for where I am in life and like the people I've surrounded myself with and my parents. Like, I don't deserve what I have, but I do know this when I got diabetes. It took me many years to figure it out though. You can get down on so many little things, like the mundane things. My job's not going right. My sports team is losing, this or that. When you truly like have something that affects you, and again, like not saying like this is like this profound, like I got diabetes and became fucking
Became
honorable.
Allah.
Yeah, but it did tell me like this like little voice in my head, like I'd have these like horrible days or like feel like I'm like I shouldn't have been chosen for this, and then I realize I can wake up every morning and right off the bat, I can get out of bed on my own. I can wipe my ass. I can eat food on my own, not through a tube. There's so many people who wake up that don't even have the luxury that they can walk, that they can hear, they can see. So it's like these crazy, like little perspective changes that, like, over the years of like understanding in the grand scheme of it, this is actually like way more like it's bigger than just my struggles. Everyone struggles in their own form. And so just knowing that, like being around people, I think it's like really important when someone like maybe one of your buddies is like being a little bit like off the rails or like he's a little too pissy, whatever it may be, a stranger, like trying to like have that perspective, like, dude, everyone is struggling. Like there's no one walking through this life that's just like, hell yeah, unless you're like the fucking rock, you know?
Yeah, unless you're the Rock. Yeah. No, I feel you on that, dude. Because I had similar notion, dude. Like one thing that I can tell you from my personal life is especially I'm very financially driven and I do a lot of different things. I have like 4 different jobs that I do on a daily basis, plus, trying to start up this business. And then we hit on this a little bit earlier. Like I will get in that habit where every day I wake up and I'm just pissed. And realistically, like, what should I really be focusing on? And Ash helps me out a ton with it because in my perspective, if I'm not performing at 110% in every single level, every single job, everything I do, even the tiniest thing, being a dad, right? Cooking food, To me, all of a sudden, it's like, bro, I'm a piece of shit. And I start going down that negative path. And sometimes I can get down that road for like months at a time. And it takes that. And I'm actually coming on an upward angle from what you're just talking about. Because I was getting down the past 2 months where it was just, I woke up and I'm pissed. Next thing you know, I'm like frustrated because my kids left a wrapper on the floor. And it's like, bro, why are you mad? Like, I woke up, dude, I have a pool at my house. Like, I have, dude, I have a car to drive. Like, I have 2 kids that I can hang out with. Like, even if I had no money, right, I can hang out with my 2 kids and go play basketball, right?
Yeah, they're never gonna come home and be like, Dad, like, why aren't you making more money?
Yes,
like, why isn't the
exactly.
podcast getting more subs? Like, they're coming home, they're going, Dad, I fucking love you. Well, they're probably not saying I fucking love you. I hope not. But
actually, Avery does do that.
Maybe
as long as Ash isn't around. So.
But dude, it's really hard to like, whether it's remaining present or just like understanding perspective, because it's just difficult. Life is tough. Life is an uphill battle, but it is those like small, like glimmering, shining moments that make everything so worthwhile. And just like I was saying, that paper I wrote, like, you truly cannot appreciate the greatest thing in your entire life without the worst thing. So in a way, we should all be loving the worst day of our lives, because without it, we wouldn't understand what like that little shiny glimmering moment is.
Bro, you hit the nail on the head. I find myself, the prayer and the agreeer at church. Found myself being the agreeer right there. Yes. So good, right? That's awesome. Just let me switch gears a little bit. So you went back. You come from a family of athletes, bro. You're an athlete yourself. On the bus, you guys have professional athletes. You got people in the back, bro. I need you to tell me right now. Rank the 3 best athletes on Bussin with the Boys.
Oh, dude. I thought you were just going to have... That is fucking hard. Dude, we have a ragtag team of athletes on our pod. And to any podcast at Barstool, I would put everything in my bank account, which is not a lot, on that we're taking anybody and anything. I need to break it down before I can really assess. Because I know these guys might hear this, and I'm gonna catch heat from someone. But obviously, we have Will Compton and Taylor Lewan. Both, decorated NFL players, 10 years. They're the 1% of the 1%.
Yes.
And they're fucking really good at what they do.
And the best part is, as far as Will's one of those fucking grinders.
Will's a grinder. Will, like you said, blue collar. Will should be the poster child for blue collar athletes everywhere. Dude grew up in Bonne Terre, Missouri. I mean, you've all seen the photos of his old teeth. Like, do not get it twisted. He looks like a front man now because of these like shiny pearls. Yeah. The kid used to be like, it looked like he was designed in an oil tanker or something. Like, it's impressive. So like, people forget that. But so yeah, we've got those guys, and then we've got JP Hovey. He is our senior producer, an absolute workhorse. And he's grown up playing sports his whole life. Dude knows his way around every sport you can think of, and really, honestly, all of our guys do. And then we got Garrett Hargis, who I've mentioned. He is our live events and merch guy. He played college lacrosse. He can play any sport too. He's got an absolute arm on him. And then we got Mitch Carsley, who played D3 football. He's got a head bigger than fucking Thanos. and he's a monster too. So like, this truly is a fucked up question because it's tough, because I'm going to have to obviously put Will and Taylor in there because they are professional athletes. But if we're talking like over everything, or just...
No, I'm talking about the dynamics of every single sport. So you need to involve all levels of athleticism.
All right, Taylor, I'm sorry. You've been cut. Taylor can play the sports, everything, but he's a big dude, and I think if we're going everything, like, you throw in golf in the mix and like any, like, some of those things, that's bringing his average down. Yeah. I'm going to throw Will in there, probably number 1. He can play, for the most part, I think, almost everything. Just a fucking tough little white kid from Missouri who made it out.
And what we see from some of the episodes, he bodied Taylor a little bit in some wrestling.
He did. He always catches Taylor. I don't think Taylor's ever beat Will in wrestling either, but that's a different story. I'm taking myself out of this. I feel
dude. No, you can't do that shit. Don't play the humble card, bro.
Then I'm number 2 for sure.
Yeah.
If we're going across the span of everything, I'd honestly even put myself at number 1, just because, like I said earlier, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I truly think I can play every sport there is, and that I'm not like, this isn't some big bragging moment for me. Like I didn't make anything of my life when it comes to sports, but I think I can do anything in terms of sports. And then number 3, this is fucked. I think over everything. Oh, man. I guess
when I post this clip, I'm gonna tag everyone.
Yeah, I know you will, and I know they're gonna see it. Like, Garrett is my roommate and like one of my best friends, and I spend every waking moment with all these guys.
He's got a mean golf game too.
Garrett is nasty at golf. Yeah, bro. I've been there when he missed a 5-foot putt to hit 69 on the course. Like, kid is dialed. I mean, like, Garrett is like right fucking there too, because he's I think I'm gonna have to go Mitch, just because Mitch played very high level football, and Mitch is an athlete.
Yeah.
And I mean, so are JP and Garrett. But I think I'm gonna have to go Mitch. JP, Garrett. I hated this question, and I'm sorry. But yeah, it has to be Taylor too. But
Taylor got cut real quick, so don't worry about it. It's all good. So I'm really glad I could post her a question like that. Thank you.
I honestly, this is funny because I make the questions a lot of times for
Really?
our guests, and I love hitting them with a question that's going to really split them in two.
Dude.
So I feel like this has been a long time coming for me, because this is also the first podcast I've ever done.
Really?
First, I mean, obviously I've been on hundreds of pods, but with Bussin.
Yeah.
But I've never been on one just like.
You've never been the main guy.
No, I know. I'm still
awesome.
trying to figure out why, but here we are.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. So, diving deeper into that. So, what would you say, same type of question, what were the 3 coolest guys that you got to meet in your adventures with Bussin, from your opinion? And by the way, if you want to include more, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, if you were to ask me, like, who's the worst guest you've ever had on Bussin, I wouldn't be able to answer, because we've truly never had a guest where I'm like, okay, he sucked. There might be one, but we're not going down that road.
Yeah.
I guess probably number 3, I'm going to have to give it to my guy, it's Melvin Gordon.
Oh, yeah?
And you probably wouldn't think that, but he came on the bus as a guest last summer, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And no one knew him personally. We had him booked up through our booking agent with Barstool, and he was the funniest, coolest guy ever. He was so nice, and just like an energy where you hung out with him, you're like, why haven't you been on here sooner?
Yeah.
And he was the man, but probably not one you'd like be like, holy shit, like Melvin Gordon, but like he was all time.
No, dude, I loved Melvin Gordon. When you guys had him on, that was one of the first episodes I ever watched, because I loved his playing ability when he was with the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yeah, when he went to Denver, I thought he was going to explode.
I did too, man. I was sad to see how it panned out, but then he ended up with the Chiefs and snuck in a ring.
Yes.
So shout out to my Super Bowl championship dog
Attaboy.
Mel. Number 2, oh man, this one's tough too. You know, we met him just in passing. He wasn't even a guest, but we got the privilege to go to Burt Kreischer's movie premiere, The Machine, like a month ago.
Yeah.
And we got to go to like the red carpet event. Again, just like how I'm sitting here, I'm like, what am I doing here? You know, like why am I here? And do you know who Jimmy Tatro is?
I don't.
He's a comedian, so he plays Bert's younger self in it, and he was just this guy when I was in high school. We like grew up on his like YouTube videos and his vines. So we were at this red carpet event, and there's like all these celebrities everywhere, and I'm like, like it's cool. We're around a lot of like cool people every day, so like you don't become numb to it, but you kind of like, oh, that's him. Like he lives here on this earth too. Like it's cool to see.
Yeah, right.
this guy Jimmy, I was like, holy shit, like that's someone where when I was 14, I'd be freaking out.
That hit the childhood feel.
Yeah, so kind of like some low, like it's probably not the ones you'd expect, but I think my number one, because the relationship I've developed with them over the years, is Jelly Roll.
Yeah.
Jelly Roll is one of the greatest humans I've ever met. He's so authentic to his core. I tell this to a lot of people, like he looks like the scariest guy you've ever met, and then he's going to turn around and be the nicest human you've ever experienced. He's just like, and he's also from Nashville. He grew up in Antioch. I like to say we grew up across the sides of the different railroad track, because Antioch was kind of like, it's the ghetto. And like, he'll be the first person to tell you that. And then I'm in Brentwood, like white suburban land, like land of white mothers drinking wine on Monday nights. But just like, because we're from polar opposite communities, but 10 minutes from each other, when I met him, it's like, he's just truly the nicest guy ever. And he connects with you and makes you feel seen and heard. He's not just this celebrity that you see and it's fake. Like he like truly listens to you and like cares for people and like makes you feel seen. So like, I just like can't give enough credit to him. I love Jelly to death, and the fucking trajectory he's hit in the last year and a half is unheard of. I mean, he went from a like very successful rap artist kind of transitioning into rock country to being a charting number one Billboard, fucking American Idol, USA Today. It's just wild. A funny story about Jelly. I was in
that was my next question.
Yeah. So well, to set it up, I remember 2 years ago, Jelly, we did a thing on the golf course with him where him and Will played 9 holes together. And me and Garrett were out there like shooting it with another team of people. And I ended up like shooting just some photos of him just passing by. I was there to do video, but I was like, if I'm out here, I'll get some photos. Ended up sending them to him, and he loved them. And the next time I saw him on the pod, he's like, dude, he's like, I've never loved someone photographing me more than you. And I was like, in my professional career, that was the nicest thing someone had ever said to me at that point. And then like 6 months later, I get a call from him, and he's like, how much does Bussin pay you? And I'm like, where is this headed? He's like, I will match it plus like a little if you come and be my tour photographer. And he's like,
get out of here.
He's like, the only thing though, he's like, you're going to be on the road for 180 days a year. He's like, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot. And to this day, it's the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my professional life. I spent about 2 days on it. And I came to the conclusion that what I'd already sacrificed to get to where I am with Bussin', it didn't seem like I was doing a justice to Will and Taylor, to my other guys, even though they would have supported me no matter what. So I had to make the really difficult phone call and tell Jelly, hey man, I like can't appreciate this more. It's like the greatest honor. But I have to decline. And he goes, Jackie, Bubba, he goes, I'm gonna love you no matter what you do. He goes, and I respect you a little bit more for saying no. And I was like, dude, that's cool.
That's dope.
And then so now, a month and a half, 2 months ago, I am in Key West at the Songwriters Festival. First time going down there. I was going to support my brother in this life, Thomas Edwards. Everybody go check out his music. He has a new single dropping called Running Through the T that will be one of the new main songs they play at Neyland, which is where the Vols play in the fall during game days. Oh, wow. So he was a lineman at Tennessee, and he's doing music now. Was like the youngest manager in Tractor Supply history, quit his job to follow this journey into music, and now he's like starting to like really catch on. And so anyways, check out my boy. I had to shameless plug.
There you go.
But so I'm down there in Key West support my boy Thomas, and the way the festival's set up is it's like in the town, and if you've ever been to Key West, there's like 50 little bars. So they have like all these like little venues, just like in little dive bars and shit here and there. And then Jelly Roll is headlining the festival. So I'm thinking, because we're all like with the artists, we have like these little artist bands, but they're not for the show. So I'm like, the day of the Jelly's set, I'm like, are we going to go to Jelly tonight? And they're like, we don't have tickets. And I'm with all these people who are like very like, some of them's like fathers are like the biggest titans in the music industry, like very plugged in. And I feel like I'm taking up space in their house because I'm just there to kick it, film some stuff for Thomas, and have some Coronas like near the water. So I'm like, maybe this is my time. So I text Jelly, and I already knew he was gonna be down there, and I was like, yo, like, we should kick it like when you're here. And he's like, I'm going to show up like day of, it would be Friday. And this was Thursday. And Friday rolls around. He like texts me at 2. He's like, yeah, we kind of had like a late night. They'd played in Tampa the night before and had to like road trip down. So I'm like, hey, knowing that it's a ticketed event, I'm not trying to be like right off the bat, hey, I need tickets. I'm like, is your show tonight? Like, do you have to have a ticket? Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, it's ticketed. He's like, you already know you're on the list. So I'm like, oh, sweet. But I'm also with 13 other people. So like, how do I do this? So I'm like, hey, I appreciate you, Joey. Like, you're the man. I'm like, I am with like a group of people. Like, is that cool? He's like, yeah, just send me the names. And I'm like, there's 13 of us. And,
Holy shit.
and I'm waiting and it's like 10 minutes. He'd been firing back responses. And when I say that, he doesn't respond for like 10 minutes. And I'm like,
I fucking blew it.
I blew it. And then he texts me back and he goes, Jackie, he goes, the number is never too high. And so we end up, long story short, we're at this fucking show with Jelly and we're side stage meeting them, like all my boys, like all these guys who are like performing there are like, dude, like this is awesome. Thank you. I'm like, it was cool to like provide value for a second and also with like a pretty cool dude. So, but that's just Jelly, man. Like he's like, when he walked out and I saw him for the first time in Key West, we were like backstage and there's 3 guys who like literally are the 3 biggest like music publishing guys in Nashville and have like, you wouldn't be like the Johnny Cashes and people who have run through their families.
Yeah.
And I'm standing next to them and Jelly walks up and instead of saying what's up to them first, he goes, Jack, what's up? And hugs me in front of like the 3 biggest titans of industry in the music.
Boys, like,
but that's Jelly. Like it's like it's not a show. It's not like, hey, I'm better than you. He's just like the fucking greatest human being alive.
Dude, that's absolutely fantastic. I couldn't imagine that. I'd be after the first episode I had saw that you guys shot of him and we had kind of followed a story a little bit. Such an intense story. That's got to be an awesome experience. I'm just sitting here, jealous as fuck. But, whatever. So with where you're at, Bussin, obviously you made a huge decision to stay. Obviously either way, opportunity is kind of flourishing, right? You guys are blowing up. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to this podcast? Like, is this something that you're like, hey, dude, I'm a lifer and I want to grow with this thing? Or do you ever see yourself venturing off and like creating an avenue of your own, like your own entity where you are the prime host?
Yeah, great question. And it's super tough because like you always want to like look ahead at whether it's the year, 5-year plan. And if I was to look back 5 years ago to where I am now, like I wouldn't believe you. But if I had to like have some sort of plan in it, yeah, we're good on time. We'll be fine.
Okay.
But if I had a plan, like ideally I would like to stay with Bussin because what I love about Will and Taylor and how they created this is they own everything. They have a split revenue share with Barstool, but they at the end of the day they own their IP. So like if we were to leave Barstool, like we leave with everything. So like there's no attachment there, which I like. And I think that they're going to continue to flourish and continue to grow and like really the sky's the limit. We're like in this crazy time in media where traditional media is no longer king and it's kind of played out and it's unauthentic and just generic, where this new age sports media where it's like the players are the ones having the conversations. It's not someone trying to get a headline. It's guys just like talking and then like they end up having interesting conversations because people trust who's on the other side of the mic. So I think I would like to stay with Bussin. I know for the foreseeable future I'll be with them. I would like to get, I don't want to be like in front of the camera, like from a way of like, I need to be out there. I want my name out there. I like it because I like talking to people. I like having a conversation. And I think that's probably in the future. Yeah. I know that like me and a couple guys who are on the back of the bus have talked about starting kind of our own little spin-off show, whether it's like we recap, like we just were in Vegas this past weekend. Yeah. And me and JP have had an idea where we'll kind of just recap the weekends from our perspective, from the sidelines kind of, and see everything that's been. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe that's something in the future. We've got some really cool things in the gambling sphere, in the chamber for this year. Yeah. So you might see me in front of the camera a little bit. Who knows? But I try not to think too far in advance just because 5 years is 5 years. Like, you never know what's going to happen. But I'm more confident now in my adult life that, no, if I'm with Bussin in 5 years or if I'm not, like, I've gotten past. I was always so scared of like getting in a job that I was just going to hate for the rest of my life. And just like have regrets about it. And now I feel like I'm getting to a point where, at least up to this point, I don't have a regret because I took a lot of chances and like a lot of like days where it didn't seem even profitable or likely that I would succeed. And I'm still not even close to there, but I like that I've been able to build up somewhat of a little bit of a credibility in my small little niche group. And I love who I get to work with. The guys I work with are everything. It takes an army, and I have the best coworkers. Obviously, Will and Taylor are great, but Mitch, JP, Garrett, Bloss too, who just kind of left, and we have a new guy named Steven. Like, we get it done, and we're with each other so much. Yeah. But it's just easy, and everyone is such a workhorse, and they grind, and we put out, I think, a really good product a lot, but there's always room to improve. And that's where we're in the stage of, is improving and trying to dial in. Because this is the first year we've ever had Taylor for a full year. Up until now, he's always had to leave.
Yeah, he's always had to part.
Right about now. So, again, it'll be interesting how this fall goes. We got a crazy tour planned, going to a bunch of colleges. We'll have a bunch of tailgates here in Nashville for Titans games. So it is, we got a busy year still.
Yeah. Side question. Taylor Lewan. Is he done?
It's a good question.
And you can plead the fifth. This is not required a yes or no.
No, he wouldn't be mad if I said anything, because truly, I don't know. This is just my opinion.
To be honest, from outside perspectives, not knowing anyone personally, it seems like even Taylor, nobody knows. Like,
yeah, no.
It's up in the air.
I mean, it really, though, it's like one day he could be like, hey, I'm going to get back in the gym. Like, not get back in the gym. The kid is, you've seen him. He's cut like 65 pounds, and he looks the best he ever has, because his whole life he's had to, like, understand, like, being in the fucking weight room and being a lineman and stuff, you've got to stay on your macros and be eating calories.
Dude, it's fucking terrible. Like, it's sad now because I'm still a fat shit, but I see, I had kids and I kind of dove into like, all right, I'm going to do this and like put my personal self to the side. So I have a fucking excuse. But on the other end, when you're in that role, especially when you get to that professional level, bro, day in and day out, 4,000 to 5,000 calories, weight room for 2 to 3 hours a day. Like, that shit is a grind. And all of a sudden, something like, and I even said this to him when we were at LSU, and it was before the thing happened. But I was like, you're in a same perspective as, you're in a very unique perspective, because you're at a point where, for the first time in probably 15 or 20 years, you don't have to do all these things. You can literally, like, you can lose weight, you can get into shape, you can focus on what you want to do. And that's such an enticing thing. And it's like, you've already made tons of cash.
Yeah, money's not
an issue for Taylor. So it's like, in my mind, in that perspective, like, if I was in that 100%, I'd be like, bro, I'm doing what I love. And
that would be my answer.
Yeah.
Is I can't answer for Taylor, and I'm not sitting here saying I know any inside info, because I don't. But if I'm Taylor and I've worked my entire life, and then now I can finally kind of sit back on a Grateful Universe type situation, then I think if I'm Taylor, I'm bowing out. Because what I think a lot of struggles that NFL players probably experience is that when their time comes to exit the league, whether it's Odell Beckham Jr. or Mr. Irrelevant, it doesn't matter. When you leave, like, something about it, like, you just become less relevant. People don't care as much to see you because you're out of this. Care. So people struggle with that identity and their ego, and it's like their ego breaks in a way. I'm not saying this is all based around ego, but for Will and Taylor, they've done such a good job setting up the next 10, however many years of their life with this pod, to where they still have a platform to be able to give their opinions and have fun and speak to whatever they want. So I think Taylor is in the perfect situation to where he doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do anymore.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then when you said that in a Grateful Universe, I'm going to put Thanos right on your face.
Obviously. That's where we're going.
That's awesome. So, unique backstory for you. I don't know anybody that may not watch Bussin', but I know there's been a long-standing thing when it comes to a specific guy you've been trying to get on for a long time.
Mr. Richard Eisen.
Mr. Richard Eisen, right? So are you still on the Twitter daily?
Of course.
Yes.
We were sitting in the kitchen earlier. I fired one off. Today we were on 394 days tweeting a photo of Rich Eisen until he comes on the bus.
Yes. And as far as I understand, the reward for you here is possibly a new Chevy Silverado.
It 100% is. Yeah, we I started doing that just because Rich had this bit forever. He's like, I'll come on the bus when you'll have a motor. And it just became a running bit on his show whenever Will or Taylor would come on. So one day, like, I don't know, last May, I was like day one of tweeting a photo until he comes on. And about a month in, like, it starts getting a little bit of traction, and like we start having conversations about it. And Will and Taylor like, what do you want if, you know, we actually get them? And in my mind, look, I love a Chevy Silverado. They don't sponsor me though. I want a fucking like 69 Camaro or something,
yes,
like built from the ground up. But you know, me being the back of the bus and understanding how ad revenue, controls our sales, I was like, hey, I want our presenting sponsors, Chevy Silverado. So yeah, we're on day 394. We're still charging. I know that Rich tried to come on last summer. Will and Taylor said no because they're like, we can't give Jack a free truck after tweeting for 2 months.
No.
And he tried to come on at the Super Bowl, and they said no because they want him on the bus. And that also could have, like, you know, promoted some kind of, because the tweet is until he comes on the bus.
Yes.
So I don't know. We'll see if he comes on. We exchange tweets here and there. He seems like a super cool guy. He's brought me up on his show a few times. So I'm excited to see when the day he pops through that door. I have a feeling they'll probably keep it a secret from me or like lie to me about a guess, but we'll see exactly how it goes.
We will see. So, well, aside from Rich, right? What is one person or one guest that you would love to have on the bus that you individually would be able to ask a few questions?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I mean, the obvious one that we were just with Joe Rogan in Vegas, but that's like everyone's answer. So, do you know the show Workaholics? Or
yes.
So like Adam Devine and Blake Anderson and Anders Holmvik and Kyle Newacek, those, like, I feel like I grew up with those guys. They're like my 4 favorite like little like team. I've watched Workaholics more times than I care to even admit, but Adam Devine just went on KFC Radio's a podcast at Barstool, and he's a huge Nebraska Cornhuskers fan, and obviously Will Compton, Nebraska Cornhuskers legend. They like follow each other on Instagram, so like I guess this is kind of cheating in a way, but anybody on the Workaholics crew, whether it's Adam, Blake, Durs, or Kyle, would be fucking awesome. I feel like Adam is in our grips, and he's definitely the biggest one of all 4 of them. So I think that would be a really fun one, and I'm hoping I'm kind of speaking this into existence, and we're going to get Adam on here pretty soon.
Yes. Attaboy. That's a great answer. I like that one. So now kind of going into some of your guys' adventures, bro. In the last 6 months, you guys, you mentioned, you know, the kind of thing that like Jelly Roll's been on. Dude, you guys have been on some amazing trips in the last like 6 to 8 months. I mean, you've been to Vegas 8 times, right?
Yeah.
You've done Beer Olympics, right?
Yeah.
You did your spring tour.
6 stops on the spring tour, a full week in Arizona for the Super Bowl. Well, I think we've been gone so far this year. We might have hit 70 days this past weekend, but yeah, we've been moving this year. And usually, traditionally, springtime is our slow time of the year.
Yeah.
Because the NFL stops, we're kind of like, and this year, spring has been the busiest I've ever been in my whole life. Traveling to all these cool locations and seeing cool people. So yeah, it has been an absolute grind, but it's one of those things you never take for granted. It's really cool.
What would you say was, and I know this is a lot, you can even rank them if you have to, which one would you say was the coolest experience? Because you've been to multiple power slaps. You just went to UFC 290, right? You helped coach a game.
Yeah,
Arizona State
took a loss in that one too. I think I'm 1-4 in championships, but Yeah.
But like, I mean, let's be real, dude. Just and then you can't really exclude the ability to, when you guys do your spring tours, you guys have those live events,
Yeah.
and you get to connect with the fans and like the boys that really like those tier ones that you guys call them.
Absolutely.
So like, what would you say is like the best experience that you've had?
Yeah. Maybe recency bias, but I bet if we asked about it in December, I'd have the same answer. My number one is this past weekend. We got to go out to Vegas. We did Power Slap. We've been at every Power Slap championship so far. Power Slap 1, 2, and 3, which is hilarious. That's just like a world that you just don't understand until you're watching two grown men knock each other out. But the coolest experience about it all, besides like meeting the Joe Rogans and the David Goggins of the world, was just being 3 rows back from one of the biggest UFC fights of the year. Yeah. And we're just around so many big people. You know, there's Miles Teller and Theo Vaughn and fucking president or the ex-president Trump,
President Trump,
Joe Rogan, and all these just massive people. And you feel really small in the moment, but you just kind of like look up and you're like, wow, like, it's crazy that work has kind of brought us to this very moment. And I'm super fortunate that I've got to go out and do a bunch of stuff. The spring tours have been so much fun. It's kind of like, this was the first one we did live shows. And like you were saying, it is really cool when you show up to a spot and like, you know, X amount of people like buy out a bar or some small theater and come and just watch Will and Taylor fuck around. And it's even cooler when like, you think you're there for Will and Taylor, and then all of a sudden, like, guys are coming up like, yo, what's up, Jack? Like, love this and love that. And you're like, cool. Like, there is, like, some kind of impact we're making. But, man, the spring tour is awesome. I'd also say the Super Bowl trip was insane. We were in Arizona for 8 days. We got to interview so many people. That was when we first met Dana White. I had Christian McCaffrey and Burt Kreischer, and then we had Jeffree Star on, which is a whole can of worms.
I think Jeffree Star kind of clouded some of them a little bit.
That was, a very bizarre experience. But Jeffrey, who is a man, and he's the first one that'll tell you that everyone's like, he, she, trans. No, he literally word for word says, I'm a guy, but I just like to look pretty and suck dick. So like, I was like, yeah, man, like that's not my bag, but I respect like that's where you're at. Like, and he was so nice and like very accommodating. We did some fun like content shit with him that went like mega viral, which was hilarious. But
that's awesome.
It was fun, and I can't wait for this year. In true fashion, the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we'll be out in Vegas probably for another 7 days. Vegas has kind of like become our second home, and I love it because we don't really go out there and like do the clubs and like fucking run it hard. We get to go out there and we do some gambling and like have some fun dinners and go to fights and, you know, have a drink here and there. But it's cool. I've really enjoyed my time in Vegas this year.
I love that you guys do that. I'm not huge the club scene, like that super party scene anymore. Like, I'm the type of dude, like, if I'm going to go to Vegas, I want to go to the Bellagio. I want to gamble a little bit. I want to go see a show. I want to go see a fight. Like, I'd love to watch Power Slap in person. You know what I'm saying? So I love that stuff, bro.
Yeah, Vegas is all time. And my crew will be the first to say it. Of anyone, I would be the one at the clubs. I'd be the one dragging them there, but I'm also not a guy that's just going to go just to go. So I've still never been in a Vegas club or Vegas pool party, but I'm sure it'll happen sooner or later.
Let's test this, bro. So you remember we met at LSU, right?
Correct.
So you were there, and this was actually on one of the when you guys released a vlog for your guys' spring that you did, right? There was the first thing. It was the first time I had ever seen you in person, and you were across the bar, and I yelled something to you. Do you remember what it was? This is the great test. We should have birds chirping right now.
For sure. The Jeopardy music. It wasn't Stoner Jack, was it?
No.
Okay, good. That's good. We can.
I'll tell you what.
What was it?
It came off of a video you guys had just dropped, because remember, we had just picked up and we saw the tickets were there. When you guys first released the schedule, this is kind of a backstory to it, but I was like, bro, I looked at Ashton, I was like, bro, I want to go. Like, because you know how it is, bro. Like, if we're realistically, I want to meet the guys that inspired us to do this. And you guys were seriously one of those foundational sets for us. And not to mention the other side, like, honestly, you're never going to grow if you don't get out there and network. Like, at least try. You know what I'm saying? And so I looked at Ash and we contemplated for like 6 weeks. And then we got all the shows that sold out. Closest one to us was LSU. We get to like the week before and VIP tickets are still on the table. And I'm like, someone's telling me something right now.
Yeah, LSU was probably our lowest amount of people at a show, but it probably had some of the highest energy we had.
It was cool, bro. So we slam it down in the tickets. We fly out, call out of work, whatever, get there, and met Will and Taylor and stuff, and then saw you from across the bar. And you had just come out with that clip when you guys were on the plane. And you had got that
with the flight attendant.
Yeah. So I yell across the bar, "The fucking lady killer!"
Oh man, yeah, that was
awesome.
That was so bizarre. I literally got her number and then was like, "What am I doing? I'm never texting her.
I'm never coming back here."
No, and that was the end of it. Yeah, so
dog. So that was, by the way, that was an awesome show. It was a great experience, dude. So you guys really. One thing I loved about it, which I had mentioned before, you guys really connected with the people there. Like, you gave them a lot of time, and you guys were, like you said, how Jelly Roll is. You guys gave everyone there an experience. And that's something that I've seen, that not necessarily at a celebrity level, but like I've been a manager in several companies. And when you're a supervisor over people, it's almost the same as being a celebrity to your fans. Like, you give them the individualized attention. That was something, and you like hear them. That was something I thought was super cool. So that's the comment. Now to my next question, I got to lead into this. We'll make this short. However, I saw in one of the posts that you hit for Power Slap, you said this guy got slapped into the shadow realm. I'm assuming this is a Yu-Gi-Oh reference.
So I know it derives from Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think I know we were going with top 3 anime.
Yeah.
So
are you the anime guy?
I think I'm gonna disappoint you because I'm not an anime guy. I respect anime.
Yes.
I am not an avid watcher of anime. I think the only like true anime I've got into, and this to the anime culture might be a big like, no, fuck you, that we don't support this. But I loved One Punch Man, if that is even considered anime. Yeah. But I'm a huge animated TV show guy. So not necessarily anime, but like I referenced like Rick and Morty earlier. Like, I love Rick and Morty. I love Solar Opposites. Like, any like animation, adult comedy, that is my absolute
Burgers.
Yeah, sure. Anything.
So give me your top 3 of those.
Okay. Number 1, yeah, undeniably Rick and Morty.
Yes.
I love it. It's such a nutty culture. The fans are so ridiculous. And I feel like I've been watching it since it first aired. Number 2 is probably Big Mouth on Netflix.
Yes.
Nick Kroll is the fucking a genius, and it's just so hilarious and absurd and off the rails. And number 3 is probably Solar Opposites, which is one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty made Solar Opposites. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's on Hulu, but it's also just another fucking epic show. And those are kind of my, I'd say probably top 3. But yeah, Rick and Morty and Big Mouth. There's something special there. The writing is so clever and thought out and so fucking moronic in the same way. So
you have to be incredibly unique in order to come up with that type of thought process.
It's so smart and so dumb at the same time. And that's why the fans are always like, "Oh, you don't get it." And then like people get hung up on one dick joke and they're like, "Ah, dude, grow up."
Exactly. So as kind of getting in your line, man, so again, you guys have made tons of connections with a lot of comedians, and you've been in that comic world, and that's kind of what some of your live shows, they're kind of, Will and Taylor are dabbling into that and stuff. But from your perspective, right, I know you mentioned one earlier, like you've met Shane Gillis, Burt Kreischer, you said you went out to California. Like, what are their environments like? What is it like hanging out with Shane Gillis from your perspective, or Burt Kreischer?
Comedians are my favorite guests and people to hang around with.
Yeah.
because some athletes, they can be great guests, but there's not a lot of feedback. It's more answer question, next question. It's not give and take. And it can kind of run stale or dry. With comedians, they're professionals. I said earlier, they're wordsmiths. So a lot of times we'll have these comedians come on the pod and it feels like they're the ones interviewing. Yeah. And I think that's cool. And it's without like a doubt every time one comes on, like you've got these notes. I've got ours pulled up in the back, a list of them. And every time we have comedians on, we don't even look at the notes because it's authentic. It's organic. So like hanging around with Shane and Bert, it's like you wake up the next morning and your head hurts still because you've been laughing for 10 hours straight. It's like there's no like iron curtain that they step behind and it's like, oh, all right, I'm turning it off. Like with Shane, we talked about it all weekend in Vegas because he was with us the whole time. We got the chance to go and see him perform live on Friday night. And he is just like so funny to a point where you're confused. You're like, how does someone create this kind of stuff? And it's, you just admire it. And especially with Shane's story, because like he was on SNL for like 4 days and then gets canceled and like talks about just like being depressed and like all this stuff. And now like he's on a trajectory to like possibly become like the biggest comedian on the planet in the next 5 years. And like he brought like Joe Rogan out as a surprise for his set, and the people were going absolutely nuts. And it's just like hanging around the comedians. Like I said, there's no off switch. Like they are just naturally funny people. They're not just writing jokes to like perform. Their whole life is a routine. Like they have the funniest skits and like bits, and they're always working through stuff. And you just laugh because they're inherently funny. So if I could choose honestly to interview comedians or athletes, most of the time I'm going to choose a comedian because they're just good at what they do.
Awesome, dude. That's awesome. So I had gotten really into Shane Gillis after his special from Austin.
So funny.
Bro, the Trump impression, that one fucking killed me. And the picture you guys posted, you see
Shane just creeping in the back. Shane has this whole thing though, like we're around him so much now, and because I run all the content on the Bussin page, everything you see from those fights, it's like an iPhone video that's me posting. So Shane like gets up in arms all the time. He's like, dude, stop filming me. But we like fuck with him and we're like, we know you like to be on the camera, but you're doing this whole bit. So we're always like secretly filming him as a joke, and then I'll just like blast him on the Bussin page, and he's like, what the fuck, Jack? And for a sec I was like, he might not like this. Like I might be actually hurting myself, like personally, like he's not going to fuck with me or be around me because he feels like I'm gonna get him. And then I got a fall from him on Twitter, and I was like, oh, we're good.
we're golden, bro. That's fantastic. So switching back, so the beer Olympics, right? You guys had that. That's over at Taylor Lewan's house, right?
Yeah,
dude. Obviously, vlogs coming out later that you're putting together.
Vlog will drop on Monday. JP has been in the kitchen. The kid does not stop working. Again, shout out JP. But that should be coming out on Monday. I don't know when this will drop, but it'll be out Monday, like the 16th or something of July.
Dude, what is your perspective when you guys have that? Because this is the second time you guys have done it, and the cool thing is like I love getting the Will and the Taylor perspective. But what is it like for you guys? Like for you behind the camera. You're there for what, 12 hours going into the dark. People
literally
are getting
12 hours.
wasted, and it's an intense environment. But you're not drinking at all really because you're working. And
Taylor's trying to make me drink. Everyone is, and you're like, if I like you want me to be drinking right now, but then you're gonna wake up tomorrow and then the content's gonna be shitty. I didn't post enough, and you're gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing? So I know that pitfall, and I think I maybe had 3 drinks all day, and 2 of them were beers that I drank literally because I couldn't find the water, and I was just I just thirsty. Hydration. Yeah, it's wild being around it. The first like 4 hours it goes is like you can imagine, energy's high. People aren't too drunk yet, and it's at like 4th or 5th hour that it starts getting chaotic. And you've been at a beer Olympics or any kind of like drinking festivity with guys. Like guys like to get competitive. They're yelling, but imagine that, but with the greatest athletes on the planet
Yes.
who are fucking 6'7", 300 pounds, just testosterone flowing out of their nose. Like it's too much almost. And by the end of it, you're kind of like, all right, let's fucking, like, the arguments start getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
The conversations become more and more skewed. You're like, what is he saying? Like, everyone's like, well, we don't know what we're arguing about anymore. Like, it's just, it's fun. But I remember 2 years ago, the Beer Olympics, I showed up to film it, and they had a guy drop. Oh God, they had a guy drop out, and so I played in it. So like last year, I was soaring, I was hammered there, having so much fun. It was me and Dylan Radens, who's a lineman on the Titans, my boy. And I swear, I'm like, this is epic. And then this coming year, like 3 months ago, I'm like, so Taylor, am I getting it back in there? Because I think I got like third last year with him. And he was like, fuck no. And I was like, wow.
Bullshit.
So yeah, it was a long work day for the boys, but from my perspective, I was super happy with how everything turned out. All the content was great. We had a lot of overwhelming support in terms of, I wanted to, because like I said, I run the socials. We're going to have a huge vlog, really in depth, but I wanted to post a lot of stuff to where it felt like you were there in the action, following a storyline through posts. And we posted a lot of good stuff. And again, shout out to our whole crew, JP, Mitch, Garrett, Bloss, fucking Jeremy Klump. It was an operation, and it took a lot of planning. We're already planning next year's. Next year's is going to be even more. They were at one point, like, probably around hour 5 or 6, when the conversation should become diluted, they're like, we need to sell out Bridgestone Arena, which is where the Predators play, and sell tickets to thinking these guys are like thinking they're going to go and play beer pong in front of 20,000 people. And I'm like, guys, like, I love this, like, let's shoot for the stars.
We
but
love
like,
the enthusiasm.
maybe let's rent out like Tin Roof or something and then work our way up. But it's a lot of fun there.
That's awesome, dude. That's fantastic. Okay. So, if you get to play in the Beer Olympics and you get to choose one partner of every single person that you've met, who would that partner be?
Like, as guests?
Guests? I'm talking about people you work with: Taylor, Will, Garrett, JP, Mitch, Bloss.
It's a good question. I mean, I might have to go with George Kittle.
Yeah?
Because George is awesome. He's another one of those kind of like jelly roll type guests where he's like, he's real. Like who you see him on camera as or on the field, like that is his personality. Like he's just a nice dude, and he's always been really great to our crew. He's also a fucking specimen and an athletic machine. I've seen him. He can down beers. He's got the athletic, advantage. So I think maybe him, and he also was the winner of the Beer Olympics. So
Yeah.
Even before then, I might have chose him, but I think he's got, he fits every box in terms of he can get around, I'm sure he can shoot, he can drink, so
Yes.
probably George Kittle.
So you're stamping right here, right now, that next year, if Will and Taylor get off their shit, let you guys participate. If George picks you, you're taking first place.
Oh yeah, definitely taking first place.
Fuck yes.
I don't think George is picking me, but yeah, if for some reason 7 alternates back out, and he's like, hey, Jack,
Yeah, Jack.
do you want to be on my? Yeah, George, let's do it. Let's run it.
Posterize it right here. Listen, George, if you pick Jack, you're coming in first again.
Yeah, back to
So,
back.
back to back. Do you want a championship or not? It's like he's like Kobe right now.
I could use another championship too. I need to even out this record, getting the positive.
He'd now be 2 for 5.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Oh man. So now, as we said, we kind of went over a lot of your guys' events, man. Done a lot of your stories. We kind of talked about the future a little bit. What is some personal goals that you've set for yourself, whether it be personal, whether it be work, whether it be financial? Like, what are some goals that you've set for yourself over the next 2 to 3 years that you want to see yourself accomplish?
Yeah, I like that question. Definitely want to see, it's kind of like ambiguous, but like the Bussin brand continue to like spike because, rising tides, lift all ships. So I think if Bussin continues to like ascend instead of flatline at all. That's a big one. I would like to start doing my own content, not like Jack McPherson's brand, but whether it's like me and JP do a pod or like any of the guys on the back of the bus do one, I would like to start diving more into that so I can have like more of a personal identity in one. And then I think a personal note, I'm trying in the next 2 years to definitely buy a house. I've been a renter. I would love to settle down over here in East Nashville. It's nearly impossible because the housing market has just gone
Insane.
bananas. But yeah, I'd like to be able to get in my own house here soon. Because I think Nashville I'll probably be here for the foreseeable future as long as I can tell. But yeah, I think those are probably some of the
Those are
goals.
the big ones for you?
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. So, dude, it's crazy. It's funny because I have like 10,000 more I want to keep running down, but you know how it is, bro. I can't keep you here all night. So realistically, like, I guess, what do you think is the most valuable part of your guys' brand? Because I know every brand has a unique, and I like to ask this question to people that are in the media, because I tell people all the time, like, we started this podcast, me, Lauren, and my two brothers, Keon and Chris, and we kind of came up with the idea. The original, if you watch the first episode, we started this 2 dimes in a token, not for the token black dude, for my brother, but we shared his story, and we did 2 episodes. Our first episode was basically taking him from the time he started, because he was a drug addict for a long time, and when he first started, got through the median part, and then the second episode is when he decided to get clean. All the decisions that he made, being a better father, all the things that he did to kind of step up, and how he changed his life going through adversity. And we tried to bridge and build this into something where we can be very authentic, be very real, tell the stories, but also have that image of like, hey, bro, anybody that sees us through this lens, like, we are very normal people, and I think sometimes when you watch like a Shane Gillis or a Will and Taylor or a Joe Rogan, like, some of those people on the other side of the lens, they're like, I can't do that, because they, in their mindset, they think it's impossible. We wanted to bridge that gap and be like, listen, guys, if he can do this, you can do anything you want to do. And with our next few guests, we kind of stayed on that bridge, and it's the same thing here. You know what I mean? Like, you've told an amazing story. You know what I mean? So for I guess if you want a 2-parter, for your content, like you said, for something you want to put out, and then for Bussin, what do you think is like the overall image that you guys love to portray?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I can sum it up into one because it merges over. It's the same thing whether it's my personal or with Bussin. But the thing I love about Bussin is they've created such an authentic environment for athletes, whatever, podcasters, comedians, whoever, to come on in a safe space. And I talked about it earlier. The new age media is the future. And it's because these guys like Josh Allen and Christian McCaffrey and, these massive dogs in this NFL world, where their whole life they're around beat writers and ESPN analytics and people just asking them these gotcha questions, these let me bait them into something so we can get one headline. That's never been the case with Bussin. Every time we have an episode, whenever it ends, the first thing we ask, they go, hey, so if you want anything cut from it, we'll cut it. Like, you just let us know. So whether like they rewatch it or their PR person watches it, they send us notes. And if like they said something where they rewatch and like, I didn't really love the way I sounded on this take, we take it out, because we're not out to get anyone. We're not out to get any headlines. And we just in turn get an authentic experience from these people where they're so used to these buttoned up interviews, and then on Bussin, they get to come and kind of like let their hair down a little bit and just be in this safe spot where, we might talk about the first time you ever jerked off, or we might talk about, things as serious as depression and mental health and all these like crazy things in between. So I think it reigns true for both my personal and my business side, is that I just want to create an authentic conversation. And like, at the end of the day, like, I don't give a shit. Like, if we're pulling headlines and going viral at the expense of someone else's mental health or their life, like, I want to do it in the most organic way, to where if it works out in the end, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But if it works out and we were as authentic as we could, like, I don't want to like look back on anything and be like, man, like I think I could have gone about it in a different way instead of trying to like, whether it's like catapult me into like a bigger audience or something. Like I just want it to be as authentic and genuine as possible.
That's fucking awesome, dude. I love that. So what are some key pieces of advice that you would give to an up and comer in this game? You see that pause right there? No pause. What are some key pieces that you would tell people about this game, the content creation, the podcast world, to keep them motivated?
Yeah. Like you always want the advice, especially from people who've like been in the industry for a bit and like have some experience. Not that like I'm that person, but I've gotten my hands dirty a bit. And I'd say it's like, it's kind of cliche, but it's truly, it's consistency. We talked about it earlier off the pod. Like people will ask me, "Hey man, like I think I'm gonna start a pod with like me and my buddy or do this or that." He's like, "What's some advice?" I'm like, "Well, it's really easy to start a podcast. Like especially in today's age where you could, if you really wanted to, film it on an iPhone and upload it to YouTube. Like you can do that, and that's not very difficult to sit down and talk. What is difficult is week in and week out having a podcast, making sure whether like we release on Tuesday, so showing up on Monday ready to like record an intro that's going to be, you know, the interview for Travis Kelce. And so it's like it's all about just continually repeating the process over and over. And it's tough because again, we talked about like creative burnout is such a like detrimental thing in our industry, and the first time you experience it, you kind of feel like the world is over and it's like, all right, well, I had my run, like time to like settle and do whatever is like safe, I guess. But like creative burnout to me is crucial to this environment because once you kind of climb back out of a creative burnout phase, things start firing and you realize why you loved it and why you started at the beginning. So if like, yeah, really, if there's any advice, it's like, don't be afraid to just put it all out there. We all are. We'll all go through phases where we post, you know, 5 times in a week or something like on your personal page. And then there'll be times where you don't post for 5 months because you're like I don't want people seeing what I'm doing. I'm struggling and like, I don't want to like put out this fake interpretation of how I'm feeling when it's not that way, like whatever the case may be. But it's truly just putting it out there because at the end of the day, we're like, and I'm quoting someone else. It's like I think it's like on Joe Rogan or some bullshit, but we're just fucking atoms on a spinning rock flying through space in the smallest fraction of time. And not to get all, you know, on you, but it's true. Like not many things matter in the grand scheme of it. So like, don't be afraid to like throw that clip out there or take that jump and take that risk. And don't be afraid to have a side gig. Like do whatever you do to make your nut and financially stay above water. And then you might have to take a couple nights off, hanging out with the buddies or like going out with the girl and like putting in 3-4 hours at night and grinding. And like, that is what people don't show you because that's not pretty. It's not cool, but it's what builds everything. You gotta fucking work.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%, man. Because that's even from a personal life. Like obviously, I think you guys have hundreds of thousands of viewers, and they see the things that you guys put up. You know, the vlogs and the episodes and stuff. But not a lot of people. Which, by the way, thank you for sharing your story in this podcast. But not a lot of people hear your backstory. They don't know the situations that you went through. And like hearing the adversity a little bit, like you had to go back and forth, going back to the parents' house for a little bit. Like you overcame a lot of road bumps, dude. And that's something that's very cool. But like you said, it's not cool to put out there. Nobody likes
No,
to see
man,
that part.
nobody wants to. And I honestly wish it would become more normalized. And I'm not practicing what I preach because if you were to look at my personal Instagram, it's like, oh, he's having so much fucking fun.
Yeah.
Dude, that's the 1% of the times. Like everyone's, like we said, everyone's struggling. Everyone's trying to get by. And just remember that social media is a facade. It is not real. It is the best moments of everyone's lives. You're never seeing the worst days.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll come back to it again. You got to appreciate that worst day because without it, we don't know what the best day is.
That's monumental, dude. So if you had the ability in your day to day, or even in Bussin, if you had the ability to change one thing, what would that be?
Like, what do you mean? Like change something about my like just life in general, or like my work?
Either or. I mean, just posting it up. I don't, and big reason too. I don't want to throw that question out. Be super direct and like make it seem,
No.
just if you had the ability to change one thing, whether it be work, whether it be something with podcasts, whether it be something personal, like,
Man, I don't even know if I have an answer to that, because like I truly am so grateful for my experience right now.
that's also an answer, by the way.
It's I'm very lucky. We've worked super hard to get where we're at, but I don't know if I necessarily change anything right now. I mean, there's obviously tons of things that I would like to change in life, but I love traveling. And I've gotten to travel so much this year, but I want to like change to where I can go out and kind of do a little solo mission somewhere outside of the US, somewhere in Europe or Japan. And that's not like I want things to change. That's more of just like, I think like that could be somewhere where that's where I find creative inspiration, is traveling. So I think it goes hand in hand with like helping exactly how I operate in my business sense. So maybe that, but man, I enjoy where things are right now, even with all of the adversity and struggles we have, because it's like we said, it's not as pretty as it seems. It's a lot of hard work and ups and downs every day and little battles you have to fight, but that's part of it.
I feel you, man. I feel you. So we're gonna switch it up. We'll go to our last segment, dude. And last segment, I think I told you earlier, we have something that's called Spice of the Week, sponsored by Joe's Backyard Smokehouse. If you're ever in Florida, I'll give you directions. Best barbecue in Florida.
Let's go.
But the Spice of the Week is, you tell what has happened in the last week that really gave you that little bit of bump. And I related it earlier. You guys have something a little bit similar to it, your shout out of the week, something small that people don't appreciate. We're looking for something that really helps build that week. Some people are having a shitty week. Some people have a phenomenal week because something big happened or whatever it is. But that little thing that kind of pushes you in that positive direction, like, dude, last week sucked, but this happened. You know what I'm saying? So it basically coaches to, hey, don't look at everything so negative. So do you want me to go first, give you an example? Or?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay.
Take it.
Fantastic. So I got to tell you. So we had the longest flight in the fucking world yesterday, right? And it was absolutely atrocious. It was supposed to be an hour and a half, right? And we got here and it ended up being a 5.5 hour deal because we got delayed. Found the camera was broke, right? All this shit. And the basically it kind of seemed like, hey, bro, this is like destined to not turn out so well. And for some odd reason, I don't know why, but we went out to Skulls last night, right? And we're sitting down, and I don't know why, I was hung up on it while we were there, but Lauren ordered this lamb at Skulls, and he gave me a piece of it, and I don't know why, but that shit was so good. And I got to finish some of that lobster soup, and like just sitting down for that meal, like made the 7 hours of hell. I was like, this is worth it.
This is worth it.
And out of nowhere, dude, like I was down in the dumps a little bit. I was freaking out because these guys will tell you I'm a perfectionist and I get obsessed with making sure like when you arrived, I'm like, hey, I want to have food out. I want to have drinks. I want to have everything ready to go. Like, right. But that little thing right there was like, hey, man, don't stress so much. This made me feel 10 times better.
Love that.
That would be a great meal from Skulls. Was definitely my spice of the week.
Dude, yeah, I remember the first time I ever had lamb, and it was a special experience. It was a great rack of lamb, so I can appreciate that for sure.
Yes.
My spice of the week, we hit on it already. We were in Vegas this past weekend, traveled back, was getting back in the swing of things on Monday, and this is kind of like a two-parter parlay. Got to get back in the gym. I love going to the gym. It's kind of like my safe place where I really feel like I can decompress and just not think about work or whatever's going on. And Mondays at our gym are like the hardest day, I would say. So got like a really good workout in, and then I went home, hit the dog park, hit the grocery, cooked up a nice meal, had some like salmon and veggies, was feeling like more clean again. And then we were talking about MCU because your tattoos, and like I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I just recently seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 like a month ago, and just fucking loved it.
Dope.
It was so much fun, and I did well in Vegas on the blackjack tables, so I had a little coin in my pocket, and I really wanted to rewatch Guardians of the Galaxy, and so I just ended up buying it for $20 on like Amazon. I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do it."
I'm doing it.
And rewatch it, and just like had such a great experience as a second time watching it. I was crying, you know, I was laughing, and so that whole combination of like getting back in the groove of things, hitting the gym, grocery, stocking up, and then ending the night with like a good movie in bed and like being like lights off, chilling, is that to me is, you can't beat that. I love movies and TV, so
that was pristine.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's awesome. I absolutely love it, dude. Dude, thank you so much,
dude, of course,
for coming on, bro. It has been an absolute fucking blast.
This has been fun.
Yes, dude. I agree.
Thank you for having me. For
dude,
real.
no, thank you for making,
awesome.
dude. Thank you for making the time.
Of course.
Because honestly, we were trying to we always venture out. We're always trying to shoot for the stars, and putting this together, especially after like being a fan and saying what's up at LSU and just being like, hey, bro, what's up? It was like, you know what I'm saying?
Let's
like,
go. I mean, this is an experience for me again. First podcast ever. So I think this is a pretty big deal for me as well.
Awesome, bro. Fantastic. Well, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you go subscribe. Gets Twitter, right? Instagram, Facebook, everything he's got.
Man.
Everything. Go subscribe.
Do whatever.
Absolutely. Jack from the back of the bus. Thank you, guys. Make sure you subscribe to 2 Dimes and a Token. Peace.
Peace.
2 dimes and a token.
You make love.